Welcome to another episode of VGN Weekly. Members of the Virtual Grip crew will recap the previous week's races and bring us one-on-one interviews with racers, league owners, and commentators, as well as others from within the sim racing community. Please like and subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell so you don't miss any of our broadcasts. If you are a league owner or potential sponsor and have a broadcasting need, please visit virtualgrip.net for info on how to get in touch with us. Thanks for tuning in today. Now let's go find some grip.
And welcome to this week's episode of VGN Weekly. I am your host, John Heyn, with your co-host, Josh Buckley. And Josh, we had an exciting week right here on the VGN network this past week. Well, OBRL was over in Sonoma, California, where Andrew Koska took home the win there after a race that was a very interesting race where pit strategy and everything else came into play there. We had a lot of comers and goers on the twists and turns of Sonoma out there in wine country. Then we came to you guys on Thursday night to see you guys run at, where were you guys, Josh?
Oh, that's a good question. A lot of pressure.
Eric Stout won.
Yep, I know that.
Well, we want to congratulate Eric Stout. We're just for full record here for everybody, and we'll get to BRL where it was Ruben Altice took home the checkered flag there in the BRL. But you're going to see a new look this week, and we do want to welcome Josh Buckley as our co-host here. So we're going to look a little different. We're going to feel a little different. And, you know, instead of having an individual guest every week to dive into them, we're going to go topics. We're going to talk about things that are happening in iRacing, happening in the various leagues that are on the VGN network. You know, in the leagues, maybe some of the leagues have the ones that we broadcast, but a lot of those leagues will have side races during the week. Like, let's just take the BRL, for instance. They have the SK Modifieds, then they have Dirt on Friday nights, and they also, it's not BRL, but it's BRL kind of affiliated, the Skidder Creek Driving. OBRL has, you know, ARCA cars, they run the trucks, they run Xfinity cars. So we're going to get a chance to cover all of that and talk about all these different topics now on this show. So I really look forward to you guys joining us and starting this new adventure, so to speak. So hang tight. We're going to go to a commercial break, and then right after that, we're going to bring on this week's guest to join Josh and I. It's Lewis Flowers from Red Light Racing. We'll be right back. And now we're going to bring in our guest today, Lewis Flowers from the Red Light Racing League. And Lewis, how are you today?
I'm not too bad, hanging in there. I'm glad to be here. How are you guys doing?
We're not doing too bad here. And you are a regular participant in the in the Red Light Racing League, correct?
Yes, I just started my first season with them.
So how you finding the treading going here in the brand new season? New guys to have to learn all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, that's what it's taking, is learning how everybody drives and everything. I mean, I feel like I got decent speed, but not enough speed sometimes to keep up with people like Josh and Eric, and there's a lot of good talent and skill in that room. That it's what I like, is the challenge of it. So.
From what I've seen, I don't know how many people have the pace to keep up with Eric. Josh, Eric's kind of a dominant force there in the Red Light, isn't he?
Yeah, no, he definitely is. I got to say, he puts in the effort joining him as a teammate for this season. I got to see a lot more of it, but he puts the time and the effort in, and obviously it shows. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's what you got to do is put in the effort. I mean, just before I came on here, I was at Slinger for a while running. I ran Friday night at Slinger, ran Saturday, afternoon at Slinger, just trying to get some laps in.
Well, the neat thing about joining a league, and we can kind of turn this into one of the topics here that we're going to talk about, because I think this is one of the most underrated aspects to people coming in to brand new leagues, because, I mean, each league has its own culture. If you run open races, the culture in those servers are vastly different from the majority of the leagues. There's more structure to leagues. People race each other every week. It's not, though, much as I hate to say this, the Wild West. And, that's kind of what you get in those open servers. That's why a lot of people, frankly, are now more in leagues than they are running those open servers. I feel bad for iRacing, because iRacing probably needs to figure out how to maybe better police that. I don't know. But tell me your first thing that you want to focus on. You came in the league. Now, obviously, you talked about it earlier about, having to learn how other folks drive and all that kind of stuff. What has been the biggest adjustment for you when you started?
Learning these modifieds a little bit. I've ran them before in some of these, online sessions and stuff like that, but it's kind of hard to try to learn with them. And I've been learning right now that it's more of a momentum car than what it is driving the late model and the super, which I like driving the supers a lot too. But there's not too many leagues with supers, but I've always enjoyed these SK modifieds in the winter, and it's just a matter of learning how to manage them. And I'm starting to learn how to get them things to rotate in the corner. I mean, I know I'm sounding like a professional, but I'm not yet, but I'm still learning to get them things to rotate with the momentum and to try to keep your speed up with them.
Yeah, that's a tough. Those cars are tough to keep up and not lose momentum. Your center cornering speed is the secret to good lap times. If you can hit the apex of the corner, you have a lot of momentum and able to carry it off a corner exit. That is how you make time in those cars for sure. But the learning other folks. When you go out there and you've got guys that, you got some guys that will attack corners. You got some guys that'll back up corners. Some guys that'll give you room when you're racing. Some guys you've got to give a lot of room to race. How has that gone for you, and how big of a learning curve was that for you?
Oh, it's gone pretty good. I mean, you just got to kind of be aware of what's going on around you and stuff and what's happening in the front. I mean, what happened to me Thursday basically was my fault. I mean, I seen the wreck, and I turned, and next thing I know, there was the pit wall, and I just slammed right into it. I just didn't have time to make a move, and I took myself out of the ball game on that one. And I mean, it's tough. I mean, and I worked all week at Myrtle Beach too, and I only lasted 5 laps. But I mean, I'll probably put in, probably at least 20 hours on that track. But like the wife said, don't worry about it and move on. Move on to next week and work on next week. And I feel like the key is you gotta take these races 1 week at a time. Don't look ahead. Just don't worry about what the schedule is saying down the road. Just look at what's next week, work on that, and then just move on. And I'm starting to figure out a little bit that I think qualifying is a little bit more important than I think it is in these SKs. Is to try to get up front a little bit, But it all depends. I mean, how the race goes. I mean, when we ran Thompson, I mean, I screwed up my qualifying lap, and I had to start 24th, 23rd, but I got a 5th place finish by just being conservative. And to me, the key is looking at these times, looking at the qualifying times that you guys run and the practice times, and that dictates to me, okay, who am I going to be racing with? I mean, when you got people like Stout up there that's 2/10 quicker, my race is not with them. It's going to be with the guys that's usually around my time. I'm not going to try to burn my stuff up yet until I can learn more at what I'm doing to be able to try to race with him, so.
Yeah. Well, Josh, let me bring you into the conversation here. You're a league owner. You actually own the Red Light Racing League. So when you bring a new person in like Lewis here, what do you think your biggest piece of advice for guys that are coming in, not just to your league, but to, any league?
Pretty much what Lewis was saying there. Obviously, like he was saying, respect is a very important thing, especially when you're joining a new league. You're very unaware of the guys that you're driving around. He's doing exactly what he should be, which is learning the guys there. And the more, you give those guys room, understand how they race, when it comes to getting the respect of everybody else, especially, the guys that have been around for a long time, it's easier to do when they see that, hey, you're aware of how I'm driving and you're trying to be respectful of that. Obviously, there's going to be a fine line between the respect and, holding your own, because you need to do that as well. So, I mean, other than that, it's just when you're looking for guys, you really want to get guys that, you care about it, because you're putting all the time to run a good league. You get some guys that sometimes they just, they come in and they kind of run amok and, do what they want to do. And you go, hey, kind of not what we're looking for here. And you see their attitude about it. It's like, all right, maybe this won't work out. And then you get other people that, are very, it's more important to them. They care about, the racecraft that they have and, showing good racecraft on the track with these other guys. And, what helps bring a good series and a good league. So.
Yeah, 100%. A fit is always important, and the thing is, you guys are a short track league with the SK modifies and Lewis and all that. So it's kind of where I kind of want to bring this conversation into is short track racing is a different beast. There's a lot of folks that are in iRacing that like NASCAR. NASCAR runs some short tracks, but they're bigger, and the cars are different. Everything's different. But genuine short track racing is just, it's a different animal, like I said, and things happened a whole lot quicker. And, even if you're running the NASCAR stuff, the smallest track I think you go on is a half a mile. But, we got places like Vegas, what is that, like a third mile or something like that? I mean, we got some tiny bull rings, Oxford Plains, all kinds of places you go where you're doing this as much as you're doing this. And, what draws, you guys to the short track stuff? Josh, I'll start with you.
Well, I grew up with it. That's how I started. Growing up, lived in Stafford Springs, Connecticut, so Stafford Motor Speedway. I could hear it from my house every Friday night. So my parents brought me when I was young, and I was hooked immediately. Obviously watched NASCAR as well after that, but still, like you said, short track racing is just a completely different animal. It's a lot more fast paced. You really need to be on top of pretty much everything. I like to use the phrase situational awareness is very big with short track racing, because everything's going to happen so fast. You can't just be looking at the car in front of you and trying to pay attention to the car behind you. You need to be paying attention ahead. A good example that Lewis brought up with the Myrtle Beach race. The first wreck happened right at the front, and a lot of guys piled in because you couldn't see it, or you saw it and just couldn't get woed down in time. Me being one of those, I was on the brakes, but it just didn't stop, and someone piled in the back of me. So I think situational awareness, especially for short track racing, is very key.
I agree with that. Yeah. I mean, it's a challenge. Number one, I've noticed here on iRacing, but I grew up with it also too, being around the Tampa area through the short tracks, and going to New Smyrna Speedway for speed weeks, and we had some new races during the year, and then me and the wife, we go up to Pensacola almost every year for the snowball, which that's a race of its own up there. But the short tracks on iRacing, it can be done. Now for me, I mean, I love Slinger. I mean, I've been on it before, and I love running that track on iRacing. A lot of people don't like it, but you got to learn how to race on it and learn how to run on it. It's a nice little track to run on. It's high bank and it's got a lot of speed. You just gotta put work into it, to be able to conquer what you're trying to conquer.
Yeah, things happen so quick on a short track, but I don't know if I think it's popular too, because as a fan, you're closer to the track. You're closer to the action. I mean, guys are on the backstretch, you're there. That's not that far away. You go to a cup race, and heck, they're a half a mile away from you, if not further, going down the backstretch. The close quarters racing, both as a fan and as a driver, whether it be iRacing or real life, I think personally, that's what I think makes short track racing so special. I think it brings you right to the action. It's right in your lap. So, what do you think draws you guys in your league, though? I guess I'll go with you, Josh. Your league and all that. What do you think is that common thread, though, between all of your drivers? Love of the short tracks. Do you think it's the challenge of everything happening so fast paced, or do you think they were fans and they came in to your league and then tried it? I mean, how do you think that's gone for you guys? As far as that goes.
Short track racing, I think is even on iRacing. I think is how do I put it? How I want to word it. It is definitely challenging, and I think that it is kind of what excites a lot of the drivers, especially if you've done a lot of the NASCAR stuff or the larger type tracks, and then you're like, oh, I never really thought about the short track side. Like, yeah, I've done it like Martinsville, stuff like that, in like a cup car. And then you get into some of these real short track cars, and it's different. I mean, the cars drive different, they feel different. The beating and banging can be a little different. Depending on the car. Some of these cars you want to be careful with the nose, but I definitely think it's the challenge aspect, and just the difference in, to use example of like the modifieds, just the giant tires, and it's just like this thing ain't gonna turn, and then it's like, wow, look at this thing turn. So it's a whole different animal, and it's I think just a big challenge.
Lewis, when you joined iRacing, did you do it more because were you drawn to iRacing short tracks, or were you coming into it from a NASCAR perspective? When you joined, like I said, what was your expectation?
Short track racing, basically. I mean, the NASCAR stuff is good. I've kind of ventured a little bit online with some trucks and stuff, but I'll come back down. I've got a B license, but that's because I don't try to advance it to the A. I'm happy with the C, D, and the rookie series with the short tracks, and that's what I basically grew up around. I mean, I watched a lot of NASCAR here and there, but it's just not what it used to be when I grew up. So I've kind of faded away from it a little bit. I mean, to say, just like the Daytona 500, that used to be a big thing, and it still is to today. It's still a crown jewel for NASCAR, but anybody can win that race today. Not like when I grew up watching Daytona and stuff. It was a whole different ball game back then.
Yeah.
And then the political side of NASCAR with Talladega and Daytona, where Chevys have to run with Chevys and Fords with Fords. That just turned me off too. I mean, that just kind of turned me off from it a little bit. I mean, you're supposed to be there to race, but not Toyotas together, Fords and Chevys and all that. But that's the way it is today. And them guys don't race for a living today. They got multi-million-dollar contracts at the race. I mean, not like when I grew up. Some of these guys were racing to make a living. I mean, they came from the short tracks to get up there, So.
Yeah. Well, the one thing that I've yet to see, doesn't matter if it's on Flow, and Flow is if you're a short track fan, you should have Flow. That's just a given.
And Racing America.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
Yep. But the one thing that, you can catch it after guys get out of their car and they do an interview and they could say something snarky about somebody else. But the one thing that you can't capture in real time when somebody's driving, I mean, sometimes you see it, I suppose, is your patience get tested on a short track. I think way more than what they do on a big track.
Even in iRacing.
Even in iRacing, especially in iRacing, because you go up there and want to mess with somebody or junk them or whatever, you're not getting hurt doing it. You're not going to hurt somebody doing it. It becomes, I think, probably more tempting than probably what it should be, in all honesty. The patience aspect of it, though, we talk about racecraft and knowing what's going around the four corners of your car and all that kind of good stuff. But the patience, I think, is one of those things that's underrated about short track racing, because sometimes you're just stuck. You can't go. That's just, it is what it is. Sometimes your car is not gonna, you're just not gonna like the way your car feels when you turn the wheel. Fixed setups, it is what it is. How do you guys feel about that end of it? The patience. How do you guys work through that? Lewis, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, well, you got to drive it for what the car is going to give you, even in iRacing. I mean, I had a toe knocked out, and I think earlier this season, Kern, and I was still holding my own, but I couldn't drive the way I wanted to drive it. I couldn't get the speed out of it, but I hung in there and got an 8th place finish. I mean, you just can't take a car that's kind of tore up a little bit and think you're going and run through the field and wreck a bunch of people and get up front. You know, I mean, hopefully that would be a boot out of the league, you know, for somebody just tearing people up through the field. But I mean, it's just patient and you got to have a good attitude. I mean, I know people get a little uptight and pissed, but I mean, you just got to kind of just let it go. Nobody does anything, I think, in our league on purpose. It just happens. Nobody's trying to, you know, run you down and wreck you and stuff like that. It just happens. I mean, the deal on the first race of the season that we had at Phoenix there, I mean, I had good speed, and I knew I had decent speed there, and I caught Eric and got to the inside of him, and we both wrecked. But see, I never blamed him for it, because you got to sometimes look at the replay and say, well, maybe I put myself in a bad position. I mean, going through a trioval like that, I should have never been down there in the first place, you know? So basically, I feel like I wrecked myself. I mean, you know, I went back into the room. My wife was watching that race that night, and the first thing she said is, "You didn't see it, did you?" I said, "No, I don't think so." I said, I had no business being down there. So I said, it was what it was. And I had no problems with nobody in this red light league. I mean, everything worked. Eric reached out to me the next day, and I told him, "Don't worry about it, no problem." I said, "I put myself in a bad position." And that's what a lot of people got to realize sometimes in here before you go blaming somebody. Did you put yourself in a bad position to get wrecked or not? You know, so that's my take on it. I mean,
yeah. And how about you, Josh? I mean, you know, the patience aspect of it, you know, if you're up there, you're battling for a lead or whatever, you know, it's a different thing. And, you know, your emotions can actually dictate how fast you go or not. Some guys, they can get ticked, and you know what? They go faster. Some guys will get ticked and they get reckless. You know, how about for you? I mean, number one, when you get ticked, do you get faster, or do you kind of start to, you know, all right, I've had enough, you're out of here kind of moment? You know, you come from Stafford, so you know the Ted Christopher, 1 tap, warning, 2 tap, all right, last chance, 3, you're gone. So you know that very well up there. So, you know, what do you see in your league and on short tracks general? How do you think patience and whatnot plays into short track racing?
I think patience is huge. Every track's going to be different too. To use as a perfect example, I like to use this one a lot for the word patience. Thompson is patience. It's a one groove track. It's a high lane groove track. Passing is very difficult. What I've learned for myself personally at Thompson, hopefully you restart on the outside. If not, get to the outside as soon as you can, but then just sit behind the guy and be as patient as you can. Let the guy in front of you make the mistake, and then you laugh and chuckle and get around him. As for the, you know, short track racing does have, you know, short tempers. Definitely a thing. You know, you're getting, you know, your rear bumper beat off, and you're trying not to hit the guy in front of you. It happens all the time, where some people key up going like, "Dude, I can't go anywhere." You know, things like that. As for me, I mean, it's part of short track racing. Anybody that's been in the Discord when I'm on the what I feel is the wrong end of the stick, I'm a little flustered, but I like to use the thing that, like, I might be mad in the moment, but give me 5 minutes. And, you know, that's the great thing about iRacing. You get junked, hit the escape button, and just go back to it. I used to, you know, just in general with iRacing, you know, years before I did the whole league thing, like, I used to get super frustrated with other guys, and, like, I would let it, like, affect me. And I finally went, why? I mean, we're in this to have fun and have a good time, and that's what red light is about, is we're out to have a good time. Yeah, I could get mad in the moment. Absolutely. You give me 5 minutes and I'm going to feel better. But patience is definitely in a lot of different situations, just with short track racing in general. I like to use I don't want to use my stuff up too early. If I'm not being patient enough, I'm going to be using my stuff up too early. And then when I need to be holding guys off, I'm letting them go because I can't stay where I want. So patience is definitely part of that as well. And a little bit of what Lewis was saying as well. Earlier with, you know, going back to the reference of Eric Stout, you know, showing some speed at some of these places, you know, sometimes it's better patient to ride behind him than try to race him at that time. Because again, if you're not that patient, you burn yourself up, and then he goes, passing you again later on and kind of laughing and waving as he goes by, just because you weren't patient enough. So definitely patience is huge for short track stuff.
Yeah. And to bounce off of what Josh was saying about Thompson, I mean, he's right about Thompson. You can make a pass on the inside of Thompson. I've been learning, but you got to make sure that maybe you got 3-4 car lengths before you try to pass a guy in front of you. So if you can't make it happen, at least you got a room to get up. Because if you go down there and it's single file, you're not coming back up.
Well, that's funny. That was actually the next topic I was gonna kind of bring up with short track, because when you talk NASCAR, or even you go to the road stuff or dirt, or passing is a different discipline for each series. Actually, road racing, you've got braking zones where you try to outbrake somebody. Dirt, you've got sliders. You go to the NASCAR stuff, you've got the slingshot. You get up and use momentum to kind of carry around somebody sometimes. Short track racing is different. You've got to either work around a guy, or you have to be significantly faster, because most of the fields are pretty close, and if you're only a tenth or two faster than that guy, even though that's holding you up a great deal, especially behind the wheel, you literally are trying to feel like you're trying not to hit the guy every time you go into a corner or through a corner, because they're holding you up. But the problem is, on a lot of short tracks and with iRacing, the way it's set up with how the tracks interact with the tires, usually you got one lane, maybe a lane and a half. So you're not going to pass somebody on the outside only being a tenth quicker. You're just not. That shorter time around, they're still going to have the advantage. You're not going to be able to clear it. So passing on a short track, where do you guys think is the best way to accomplish that? And Josh, I'll go to you first.
It depends on the track. A good example where we BRL was Langley last night, I believe.
Yeah.
I said on the broadcast.
I don't want to really talk about that, but yeah, we can.
As I said of that, every track's going to be different on how you can pass. Using the apron seemed to work when we go there. I like to use the apron a little bit. Stafford is again another one just to use for a frame of reference. I surprised Jeff Aho last season making a late move, as you would normally see as Stafford. Doesn't work as well on iRacing, but kind of dive bomb into turn one and really shocked him by putting all 4 tires on the apron, which in iRacing you really can't get away with, but I somehow did. And even Jeff after the race, he's like, I was actually really impressed with that. Passing is difficult. It's just trying to set up exactly how a guy's running in front of you. If you see that you're better into the corner, maybe try to make your move getting under him on the entry of the corner, and hopefully it'll stick and you can run with him off. But it's a situational every different track. So.
And I agree with that. Yeah, every track's got a different passing point, and that's what I'm still learning too. And you got to kind of be careful with it too. If you know that you're loose, don't try to go down there and try to pass somebody and just run right and door slamming. You're going to try to do it with what your car is capable of doing too. And that's a learning curve that I'm still teaching myself too, just because I know you could pass down there, but the car won't do it, don't do it.
Yeah, on the NASCAR side or the road side or whatever side, that's the unique thing that part for me, actually, what attracts me to short track racing. Passes often takes 3, 4, 5, 6 laps to complete. That's the challenge. Could you go up there and knock somebody out of the way and get it done, like that? Oh yeah, you could.
Oh yeah.
But majority of folks, especially in the leagues that VGN covers, that's not acceptable. You won't last long in the leagues that are on VGN. So that's kudos to all the leagues that are part of our broadcasting, but. That 5 or 6 laps, though, it goes back to the whole patience thing and trying to get that stuff done. I don't think that's another one of those things you could put the camera on and talk about, okay, hey, these 2 guys are racing, they're nose to tail, they're, all the cliches, you could throw a blanket over these guys, but that's something that, is incredible if you realize what is going on behind the wheel of each one of those cars. Because if you got the guy in the middle, he's trying to pass and defend. You got the guy in the front. He's just trying to concentrate and get fast laps and not get caught up what's going on behind him. The guy in third, which I don't know how this works, but most of the time the guy in third is usually the quickest of the three. It just seems like that every time that I ever see it. And all of a sudden you've got this, yo-yo of cars, trying to figure everything out. For you guys, when you guys are on track and stuff like that, I guess I'll go to you first, Josh. You're the meat in the middle, man. You are the guy that's got one out the front, one out the back. How difficult and what are the different things you do to try to handle those situations?
I'm just going to use a good example. With a red light, we have the Allens, and I've been in the Allen sandwich, I like to call it, a few times. It's really just that. You're trying to do your best not to run over the guy in front of you, but also try not to get held up too much by the guy in front of you that the guy behind you might get into your bumper, drift you up the track, and kind of out of the way. Obviously, nothing he's doing intentionally. It's just, when you're running together like that, especially with short tracks, you are so close to each other, and everything is happening so fast. The reaction times it's so quick. And if you are not on top of it, and then, that guy in the middle or in the front checks up, and that guy in the third spot is not paying attention, there goes the bumper, and then, you're getting pushed to the guy in front of you. And we've seen wrecks happen that way. So it's not, I'm not going to say it's fun. Obviously with league racing, a little more comfort when you're used to the guys you're racing around, because all right, he might be aggressive, he might give me the bumper, or I know he'll give me some room. A good example, when I raced with Heyn, Feeney's a great guy. If he has your respect, he will, he'll be very respectful to you. There's been some situations where, to use for an example, kind of call out Eric Stout on this. It would be funny.
We like call-outs. Call-outs are good. We're good. Rivalries are good.
Yeah, this is the fun part about it. So Eric Stout's coming out of pit road. He had to serve a penalty or something. I'm not sure what it was. I believe I am leading, and I have Feeney behind me. And Eric comes out right in front of us. Now, I have to either go around him on the outside or sit behind him and lose the momentum and probably have Feeney try to make a pass. So I get stuck on the outside. Feeney could have just thrown his nose right behind Eric and taken the position. And he even, keyed up in Discord as soon as he let me in, and we raced it from there. And he's like, I didn't want to take the pass from you that way, because that was not the best move of Eric to make, especially kind of being a teammate. I was kind of scratching my head going, I don't know why he did that, but it is what it is. We talked about it. We talked about it after the race, and we were fine. But, being put in that, sometimes like you could get angry and, kind of go, what are you thinking, yada, yada, or just try to deal with the situation. They're all different. Eric doesn't normally do things like that. Lapse of judgment, maybe that was. I'm not sure. We all have our moments. So that was definitely one for him. But I've been in that situation a lot. I don't like being the meat and sandwich per se, but everybody's going to run into it at some point.
Yeah, and Lewis, the thing that he's talking about too is being in there because he jumps to the outside of Eric there. That's the hard part about short track racing, because if you try something and it doesn't work out, you could go right back. Especially some of these tracks, you could get hung out and go from running third to eighth in a matter of 2 laps. 2 18-second laps. So we're talking in a very quick time, you go back. So measuring when you're going to do things. I know it's track specific. What tracks can you get away with going on the outside and keep a momentum and all that. But tell me about the decision making that you use in those situations on how to set up a pass and where to do it.
Well, the key with me a little bit is, like I was just to bounce off what Josh said, it's got to be smart racing. I mean, everybody's wants to, this is my opportunity to pass. And it's not always works out that way. You just got to be patient with it and just kind of feel out. I mean, I would have done the same thing that them two would have done with Eric pouring out. Just save it for their 2 or 3 laps. And don't put yourself into a position, like I've been saying, to cause an incident and a wreck. And I'm still learning on some of these tracks where passing zones is. I do know that Langley, you can run the apron. I even practiced by myself running that apron down there to learn the car, what it could do down there to pass and stuff before I go into a race to try to see what it does. I mean, a lot of people criticize me sometimes in practice because I'm always running the second groove more than I practice, because I'm not too worried about putting a fast time when I come in to the practice before the race. I'm learning how to run that second groove because you're going to be up there sooner or later. And I think a lot of trouble is a lot of guys don't know how to run nothing but the main line, but you got to learn how to run that second groove too. So when you get forced up there, you don't cause issues, So I practice bottom, I practice top all the time.
Yeah, I always call when you get into a session and that practice, times, I always call that the ego sheet. That's all that is, an ego sheet. I mean, it's nothing more. I go into practices and I'm running all over. In fact, I'll slow down and let somebody get to my inside and then purposely try to race them a few laps just to see how well it actually works and all that.
Right.
And I'm sure I've irritated a lot of people going thinking, this is practice. What is he doing? I'm sure of that.
I've done it. Yeah.
But I mean, I'll see somebody that's half a second behind, and I'll slow up so they can get to the inside, and I will do that very thing, and that's a smart way to go. Other than just hitting that same line. Yeah.
I'm the slowest guy in practice, but that's fine. I mean, I do most of my qualifying practice by myself, but when I get into the practice rooms that they have and stuff, I don't worry about qualifying because sometimes I get disqualifying too much in my brain. Then when I go to do it, I screw it up anyway. So I just stay away from it until it's race time. And I just practice the second and the first groove and practice where I think you can pass, on some tracks down low or high, just like South Boston. I think you get down there off of turn 4 on that apron just a little bit and get a run on somebody down there, but it takes practice, and I'm still learning. I mean, you're just not going to get in there and do it right away, and because the last thing I want to do is screw up somebody's race. I mean, that's just for me doing something stupid.
Yeah, and that ego sheet, how useless it is, and I'm sure that this has happened to both of you guys before, but I've been towards the top of that ego sheet and thought, oh heck, I'm gonna rock tonight. I've got a good car. I'm running fast. Green flag drops and you got a parachute out your back and you're like, what just happened? Or you're flip side of that towards the back and you're scratching your head going, where's the pace? Why am I so slow?
Right.
Green flag falls and all of a sudden you start going forward. I have had that happen more times than I can count. I'm both sides of the equation there. So yeah, that, like I said, that ego sheet, I never put too much stock into that. There's too many guys, too many agendas that are trying to accomplish there during practice anyway. But it's cool for the fans. I know it's cool for the broadcast to point out, hey, look who's quick here, look who's not, that kind of stuff. It's good conversation, but funny thing is, once that green flag flies, it means absolutely nothing.
Right. So, I mean, I've been on top of that sheet sometimes before, not in this league, and then I go in the qualifier, I'm like, geez, I'm 18th or 19th. I'm like, what happened in practice and now, so I mean, I think a lot of guys just kind of practice more than they try to put down an ego sheet, but you're right, there's a lot of people like put fast times, and that's fine. I mean,
100%. They're not doing, if people that strive to be on the top of that list, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Power to them.
Right.
So I'm not bagging on them. I'm just saying that I don't know how much stock I'd really put into that, but
right. But like I said, I'm always slowest in practice. I do my qualifying practice during the week and stuff, and then I just save it for when it's time to qualify. So.
Yeah, the other cool aspect of short track racing is, you can run a whole lot of laps, 100 laps, 125 laps, and and some nights there's very little separation between everybody on the track. I mean, you might lap, a few guys might get lapped and whatever, but there's clusters of guys racing, and that's the other thing that, that I do want to touch on, I guess, kind of from an etiquette standpoint is, you could be fighting for, let's just say you're having an off night and you're fighting for 10th, 11th, 12th. Well, you got a leader behind you. You're racing these guys, you want to get in the top 10, but here comes the leader. That always brings interesting moments on short tracks. Okay, who's got to pull up? Because inevitably, there's always that guy that will Watch you pull up. Watch them pull up. He'll get out of their way, but as soon as they go by, they dive in right behind him and try to pass everybody. As you know, which is legit. I'm not saying it's not legit.
Right.
Done the same myself. So, talk about the Josh, you talked about earlier about situational awareness. That's the thing about short track racing. Those leaders can come up on you really fast when you're in the back. What do you think is the best course of action for folks when they can see on their relative or they know those leaders are coming? What says you about what's the best way to handle that?
Everyone's going to take that different. Me personally, iRacing gives you a relative, so you can have an idea of how far back the leader is until he gets to you and how long it took him to get to you. If you're just really slow, for the most part, it goes back to being respectful.
Right.
If he's obviously doing everything to try to get around you and you're really holding him up, I do understand if you are on the lead lap and you're trying to stay on the lead lap. But I also will keep in the back of my mind, okay, what if the leader goes? Obviously, if the leader's by himself, there's no one behind, no one relatively close behind him. All right, maybe just let him go, drift up out of the way, file in behind him, and then just hope if he catches anybody else that you can pass that person he laps as well. So that way you get the lucky dog around if a caution comes out. It's all back to the situational stuff. It doesn't do you any good to try to hold the leader up unless you feel you really can hold with him. However, especially with short track racing, he's probably got some speed. That's why he's already lapping you at that point compared to you. So a lot of the times it's just better to just give way and just try to file behind him and keep going. Sometimes that won't work because he's got guys behind him too, and especially if he's got guys behind him trying to come get the lead, he's going to be pushing to get you behind him. So it's definitely just every situation is going to be different, and just take it as it goes in that time. And respect is a huge thing on the racetrack. So
yeah, it's basically common sense is what I've always kind of say. I mean, you gotta.
Well, if sense was common, everybody would have it. Yeah. So you can't always count on that.
Yeah, but you got to race with common sense, and I know you can't count on it. But I'll be the type of person, if I was even leading, and Josh is in second place, he's 5 seconds behind. And all of a sudden, boom, he's right there at my bumper. I'll just get out of his way because I figure, hey, if he caught me that fast, there's no sense in him racing me to try to wreck, so we both get into a wreck. I'll just settle for second and move over,
Yeah, I'll even do that with guys that are on the lead laps fighting for a spot. If somebody runs me down,
yeah,
man, I'm not getting wrecked trying to hold on to 12th place.
The best thing to do is to move over and just let it go. Now, if there's 2 or 3 laps to go, I can understand. I would race Josh or whoever was for it. But when you got 20 to go,
yes.
just get out of the way and take what it is.
Yeah,
move on to next week.
We talked about keeping the frustration levels and all that kind of stuff in check. I can tell you that is probably for me the number one pet peeve is you got a guy back there running 13th and is fighting you like it's second place on lap 20. Yeah. That just drives me nuts. The thing is about that though, they have every right to do it. That's the part that you gotta manage. They've got every right to the track that you do. Yes, and but holy cow, that's probably my number one pet peeve on a racetrack. Somebody you run down there or whatever, and it's just like, come on. We're gonna end up wrecking each other, or we're gonna have to put each other in really bad spots for what? For 12th? Come on.
Right.
We have all been there.
Yeah. Oh, I know. But to me though, that's like I said, we're talking short track racing. That's one of the things that is interesting about it because, like I said, on the bigger tracks, NASCAR, you've got options. You've got a whole lot of options in some tracks. Road courses. Heck, all you got to do is wait to the next corner and outbrake them on most tracks. You're not stuck behind them lap after lap after lap. Where some of these tracks, like I said, having a mile, having a lane and a half, maybe a viable road that's fast, getting in there and getting around them, your options are very limited. So you have that clog in the middle of the road. Get under your skin real fast. So, This has been a cool conversation because I liked it and enjoyed. We all like short track racing. I know majority of what's on VGN is short track. That doesn't rule out we're gonna have to bring it. We're gonna have to bring the OBRL guys on because I tell you, I don't know if you guys have watched the OBRL broadcast, but those guys put on a heck of a show. It doesn't matter if they're on the 2 mile, mile and a half. Richmond. Last week, down there at Sonoma, those guys put on. So we're gonna have to get their take on this too, so we'll have to do that somewhere down the road. But I do want to thank you guys for popping in here and having a conversation this week.
Sure, it's been good, and I want to thank Josh for letting me come into the league, and and I'm enjoying the league so far, and I plan to be there every Thursday night, unless there's a special commitment that will not allow me to. But it's a good, I think it's a good deal to learn in, and I'm a little concerned about Slinger Thursday night, but I know I can run it and drive it, but you can't let your frustration get to you because there's probably not a lot of people's going to be able to drive it, but that's okay. And I'm not trying to put nobody down, but I'm just saying it's going to be rough Thursday.
I wish iRacing would get an asphalt midget. I can't imagine how much fun those things would be at Slinger, But we'll look forward to watching you Thursday night there at Slinger. And Josh, as a league owner going into a track, I got to ask this: that's going to be a difficult track. It's going to be an interesting night. It's elbows out. It's an elbows out track. There's just no two ways around it.
You got to keep your frustration to yourself.
So we talk about the drivers, their mindset when they get to that track. Take me into the league owners. You probably got to get some messages from people going, what that SOB did to me. How do you mentally get ready for going into that kind of track?
The great part about it, I've been a league owner for a long time. I've been there. I've done it. I've dealt with it. I don't, knock on wood, there's not been much that I haven't had to deal with. That was definitely the one that when we made the schedule could be iffy, and then you're doing the twin 75s on top of it, so you're just taking that level and amping it up even more, because now instead of 100 or 150 lap race we would run there, we're splitting it in two, double points night. It's all sorts of
so you added fuel to the fire. Okay. That's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let me know how that works out.
Us as admins, we know what we're getting into. Slinger's
late night.
Slinger's just its own thing. What it is great though about league racing is it's the same guys every week. And again, so you're not just racing guys that you're not used to.
Right.
Respect is a thing, and especially short track racing, cautions happen. I get it. Tempers will flare. I get it. It's just looking at the bigger picture. Again, it's just respect on the track. If you're given respect, especially early, again, like Lewis was saying earlier, you're not going to get anywhere on lap 20 out of 75. If the guys run you down, just let him go. You can hope he burns the stuff up, and then you go sailing past him later. That's always what I do. But it's going to be get into a routine. Hopefully, get into some green flag runs, and just to see what everybody's got at that point. Run your race, and pick them up and put them down as you can.
And keep it on the schedule. I mean, I love that little track. I love running, so keep it on the schedule next season.
Well, we'll look forward to seeing that Thursday night. And speaking of Thursday night, please tune into all our broadcasts. We've got a pretty cool week lined up here. We're going to go to the historic track with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Sunday night with the OBRL. VGN Weekly will be on Tuesday night. And then Thursday, Red Light. We just talked about it, Slinger. And after what you just heard, how can you not watch this week? So make sure you tune in to watch the Red Light Racing League at Slinger. And then Saturday night, the bootleg racing is going to go to one of the newer tracks on the schedule. It's going to be the Oswego Speedway out there in New York. And I like that track because you get it both on dirt and you get it on asphalt. So I don't know if I'll be able to talk Lowell into just putting dirt on it for Saturday, but I doubt it. But we can try to have that conversation. But once again, though, I thank you guys for joining us here, and we hope to see you again next week.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of VGN Weekly. Join us next time for race recaps, interviews, and much, much more. Please like and subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell so you don't miss any of our broadcasts. If you are a league owner or potential sponsor and have a broadcasting need, please visit virtualgrip.net for info on how to get in touch with us. This has been a production of the Virtual Grip Network and the Skidder Creek Motorsports Group.